The problem is we don't often live in a sun-scorched land. We're not facing persecution and hardship. And we want prosperity to look a lot more like the world. I think there's a massive problem within the church where we have looked for prosperity in things that God never intended us to prosper in. Hi everybody, welcome back to episode 5 of the Proximity Podcast with Jubilee Plus's Natalie Williams, who has been giving us all her finest wisdom through this 6-part series, and we're nearly through. It's been amazing. I hope you've enjoyed the journey. And Natalie was just telling me earlier that if you disagree with anything we say, you should feel like you can say. And I want to make that clear. We're not the experts in the room. We're trying to work this thing out as we're going, as we work our way through this banger of a passage.
Do you think that we should have people vote on who they think is the most right or wrong?
Let's not. I already know the answer. It isn't me.
No, I think it will backfire on me because I'm being smug and assuming that, people might vote for me as...
I'm always really impressed with your knowledge of the suite of scripture and how you're able just to drop in. I was thinking about the Macedonians.
Do you know what? I saw your face as well when you referenced the passage last time, and then I said in Luke 12,
I know,
and you were
like, what the heck?
you knowing where that passage is. But that was like literally a one-off.
You've schooled me a number of times when they're making of this podcast. What were you saying earlier? I think it's Luke's gospel.
John the Baptist.
And I was like, definitely not Luke. Definitely not Luke. Because I know all about Luke. I don't know if you know, but I preached the whole series.
Okay. And then you were like Luke 3.
Oh, gosh. I'm a major failure. Anyway, let's get into this amazing bit of scripture. We are really enjoying this awesome prophetic call to the church, to the people of God, to be on the mission and about the justice of our God. And I'm going to join us. Let's take us straight in at verse 6. Is not this the kind of fasting I've chosen to loose the chains of injustice and untie the cords of the yoke, to set the oppressed free and break every yoke? I love how that's not like some of the yokes. Yeah. Every yoke has to be broken. Is it not to share your food with the hungry and provide the poor wanderer with shelter? When you see the naked, to clothe them, and not to turn away from your own flesh and blood. Then we get to the promises. Then your light will break forth like the dawn, and your healing will quickly appear. Then your righteousness will go before you, and the glory of the Lord will be your rear guard. Then you will call, and the Lord will answer. You will cry for help, and he will say, "Here am I." If you do away with the yoke of oppression and the pointing finger and malicious talk, and if you spend yourself on behalf of the hungry and satisfy the needs of the oppressed, then your light will rise in the darkness, and your night will become like the noonday. The Lord will guide you always. He will satisfy your needs in a sun-scorched land, and will strengthen your frame. You'll be like a well-watered garden, like a spring whose waters never fail. It's an incredible thing. We're now moving into the promises of God for those who are seeking after him, who find him amongst the poor, who begin to deliver the ministry of God and begin to be about his justice and his righteousness, which means the alleviation of affliction, breaking the bondage of oppression. There is a promise. There is a blessing. And I don't know about you, but I'm not always great with that bit, that there is some blessings that come from it. I don't know. How do you feel about the blessings of the Lord?
I'm very happy to be blessed by the Lord, Sam. I think we probably have...
You're very prosperity gospel, I sense.
Yeah, no, not so much that, but I like the fact that here I call this the mercy loop. Always got to sneak the word mercy in somewhere, haven't I? But the mercy
Books
loop,
available on all good bookshops and Amazon.
yes, 'tis mercy all. And actually, there is a chapter on this very thing in this very passage in that book, but that wasn't supposed to be a shameless plug. But the mercy loop for me is this idea, what Jesus says in the Beatitudes as well: be merciful, and you shall receive mercy. And actually, that's not what he says, is it? Blessed are the merciful. What I did there was meld two verses. So Luke 6, verse 36, be merciful just as your Father is merciful.
See what she's doing there? She's quoting scriptures like she knows what she's doing.
Yeah, but that one is my favourite Bible verse, so that one's an easy one for me. I can't tell you where the Beatitude is that says, blessed are the merciful, for they shall be shown mercy.
Matthew 6.
Yeah, but it's also in Luke, isn't it?
Oh, it's yes. Slightly different though.
Yeah, okay, thank you. Nice little competition there. But there is this kind of mercy loop, isn't there, where it seems to say, and not just in this passage in Isaiah 58, but elsewhere too, both Old and New Testament, that as we do good to people who are in poverty or afflicted or oppressed or exploited, as we do good to them, God does good to us. And I don't pretend to understand this because I am a woman who believes in grace. I believe in the grace of God. I believe I'm saved by grace, not by works. Although I still want to run the race to win the prize. So there's that weird dynamic, isn't there? So I don't believe it's like I earn things from God. And yet there are clear promises right here. It says in this passage that as I satisfy the needs of the afflicted, God will satisfy my needs. That as I pour myself out, that I'll be like a well-watered garden, like a spring that never fails. And I know you and I might have different interpretations on what some of this means, whether it's practically. So we talked about healing. Does it mean we're physically healed? Or does it mean the kind of healing that comes by salvation in Christ? For me, I think it's both. It talks in this passage about your night shall be as the light. In a different translation, it says your gloom shall be as the noonday sun. Now, that is actually my experience.
Very rhyming. Your night will be light, your noon will be gloom. Yeah. Gloom will be noon.
Gloom will be noon. Yeah, not noon be gloom. That's the wrong way.
Yeah.
But your gloom shall be like the noonday. And that's actually been my experience as someone who's struggled with depression for most of my adult life. This isn't a magic formula. This isn't, I give a bit of my food to the hungry and my depression gets lifted. Otherwise, we'd all just do shifts at groceries and community groceries, wouldn't we? And then no one would be depressed anymore. It's not that, but there definitely is a connection between when I spend myself on behalf of other people, and particularly those who've got less than I've got, I find that my gloom, my medically diagnosed depression does lift. It does shift. And like I say, it's not automatic. It's not like a vending machine. I put in my helping someone who's homeless and out comes my sudden joy instead of despair. And yet, clearly in the Word of God, there are promises attached that when we do good to other people, God does good to us. But I don't know, what do you think about that? Because it's a
We've just got to be careful that we don't come full circle, that we don't find ourselves at the beginning of the passage of 58, that we're like, oh, right, so now we've got the plan. Now we've got the strategy of God. This is what he rewards, so let's do the things that enable us to get the reward. I don't think that's there.
Yeah.
I think there's, you know what, if you do the things that I love, you'll know my love.
Yeah.
And that's actually the motivation has to be being in the presence of God, being about the mission plans of God.
Yeah.
But what comes with that is this overflow of blessing. Like, in a sense, I sometimes talk about we've got to be careful that we don't become a cul-de-sac of God's blessing. That blessing comes to us and stays with us.
Yes.
It goes through us, but as the blessings of God pass through us, our lives experience something of blessing.
Yeah.
And these blessings are incredible, but they're not, I don't see Ferrari here. I don't see penthouse apartment in Hastings.
I don't think there is.
There isn't one.
Okay. Apartment in Hastings.
Or somewhere further down the south coast. This isn't the promise of affluence for me.
No, I agree with you on that.
And I think there's something about if you empty yourself, spend yourself on behalf of the poor, you will be filled. In the same way, blessed are the merciful, for they will know mercy. Spend yourself, empty yourself, and you will be filled. Satisfy the needs of the oppressed, and you will be satisfied. But I think it's almost like when you get rid of self, you get the best of God, and it's going to start with his presence and the overflow of that. And so, I want it to be that the blessings first look more like the spiritual than the physical. That's just the way I'm defaulted. I don't necessarily need it to be my physical healing, but what I want to do for that healing to be that I look more like Jesus. That's what I crave, and I want the fruits of the Spirit. As I feed the hungry with my fruit, I'm hoping the fruit of God, his Spirit, will begin to be displayed.
Yeah, and you know what? I agree with you entirely. I'm definitely not saying like, you pour yourself out on behalf of the poor and then you get prosperity. I don't agree with that at all, actually. I mean, and we see that. I think it's very, very clear in the life of Jesus and then in the early church. What you're not seeing is a load of people getting super rich off the back of healing people and bringing.
They got super persecuted, actually. Didn't they?
Exactly, and super killed.
Yeah.
So I'm not saying that, but I think it's interesting the words here as well, though, aren't they? Things like "you'll be satisfied." Well, like you've just alluded to, what I find is the reason my gloom lifts when I spend myself on behalf of the poor is because I am in the presence of God more.
There you go.
Yeah, it's exactly the same thing. The reason I end up going, oh wow, I'm so satisfied in God, which he promises in this passage. But it's interesting, it says he will satisfy you in a sun-scorched land. And I find that personally, I know that the wilderness seasons of my life, the times where I felt like I'm in a dry valley, is often where I've most encountered God and found most satisfaction in God. So I think this isn't promising prosperity, but it is promising a closeness in your walk with God. Even like the bits about then you'll call and I'll say, here I am, that those sorts of bits. It is presence. It's that as we give ourselves, we become satisfied. We become like a well-watered garden. We do find healing, whether it's spiritual, emotional, or physical, through the closeness and the proximity, first and foremost, with Jesus Christ.
I love that. Yeah.
So I'm glad that I've just been able to correct that I'm not telling everyone they're going to get a Ferrari if they live out Isaiah 58.
No, it's for me, that's clear. I think actually it promises us a sun-scorched land.
Yeah.
Like in there is that there won't necessarily be easy days, but the promise is that there'll be a thriving, like a well-watered garden. It's that Psalms 1 piece, is it? Where it talks about a tree that bears fruit in all seasons, and even when the drought comes. I think there is a drought, there is a difficulty, hardship that each of us will face. It's not a guarantee that from here on in, when we do what we're supposed to do, we've got an easy ride. But there's the sense in which we will be full of life. What is a tree that's well watered and bearing fruit consistently? It's just life, full of life.
Yeah, and life-giving, actually, because I was reading somewhere about the number of species that can only live because of big, mighty trees. And I can't remember it in a way that's massively helpful, but it's literally hundreds of things that are given life by trees that are strong, sturdy, well-watered. And so there's something of... even as well, there's that passage in the Gospels, isn't there, where it talks about the mustard seed and the trees, the birds will come and nest in the trees. And it's like your tree is a safe place and a thriving place then for others to come and nest as well. So
I think that's Attenborough chapter 4. Yeah, that's cool. I like that analogy, though. Yes, we'll be we'll be full of life, and then life-giving at the same time. That's great. I like the idea of the light breaking forth, like the dawn. There's this clear separation. They were obviously this people that the word of the Lord comes to, facing some level of darkness, and there's this promise that the light will come. But even that, there's often other references, isn't there, that light would represent righteousness. Is it Psalms 37? Your righteousness will shine like the noon day's sun or salvation. Am I right?
I don't know. You're just showing off now with how many Bible references you can drop in.
Oh.
But do you think as well, though, that and your light, because obviously this was originally written to the Jewish people of God. And so when it talks about your light will break forth, I've always interpreted that as well as salvation for others, for those around them, and particularly because obviously elsewhere in Isaiah it talks about the light to the Gentiles. And so I've wondered if that means as well there's something of salvation in there, which might just be me reading too much into it, but I do think for me it makes me go, okay, so I need to not separate my practical act of service from the need for people to come to know the God who made them. But yeah, I don't know if that's actually in there or if that's just something I'm reading into it.
Can we go as far as to say that all the blessings that are promised are likely to be for the benefit of others anyway?
Yeah.
That yes, we'll experience them. But is that where this sort of cycle, is this what you get into with the cycle of mercy? Maybe that's the mercy loop or whatever.
Yeah.
I don't know. Is it that as we pursue God and find him in the lives of the broken and the oppressed and hear his voice say, here I am, there I am. I love that. I'd love to have David Suchet read that and suddenly go, here I am. Here I am. I'm amongst the poor and the broken. And as we do that, then we know from his presence comes blessing. The blessing will be for the benefit of others. And then that will see change and transformation in their lives. And they will become rebuilders that we read about in Isaiah 61. And they then know the mercy of God and experience him, find him there. They then know the blessing that's passed on. Is this the on-running?
Yeah, definitely. I think that's exactly what it is with this whole mercy loop or cycle of mercy or whatever. It's that it's never ending. And, the mercies of God are new every day. It says that in Lamentations. So
why aren't you using your hands, Natalie?
Well, because I've started talking about mercy. And
no, the loop. I've been doing the looping.
You want me to do some sort of loop thing? Because not everyone's watching this. Some people are just listening.
I'm waving my hands wildly
around. Whatever I do with my hands isn't going to... But I do think there's something of... the perpetual nature of this, the ongoing nature of it, even the passing the baton from generation to generation. I am now using my hands because you've pointed it out. Now I feel self-conscious about it. But there is something, isn't there, of just, I don't know. I was having a conversation with someone the other day and they were talking about, I just can't wait for God to do a new thing. And I turned around a bit flippantly, partly, I don't know if I was just in a grumpy mood or whatever, and went, but isn't it great that he does a load of old stuff too? Because I feel like there's this, we always want the new thing, and that's not wrong. Isaiah, even God says, doesn't he, behold, I'm doing a new thing, do you not perceive it? In fact, that's on one of your walls here, the Message Trust, isn't it? But actually, I love the fact that God can be utterly relied upon for his faithfulness, and that's the old thing. That he's faithful to every generation. There isn't a single generation that God isn't faithful to, that actually God is unchanging. So there's the old thing. And I think mercy is like this old thing that gets passed on. Every generation experiences, whether they know it or not, the mercies of God. And every generation is called to be merciful to those in poverty, to those who are afflicted, and so on. And so, but it's never for themselves, is it? Just like it's not, God doesn't bless us for us, like you said, it goes through us to others. And then the others that get blessed, it's not supposed to sit with them either. So no one's supposed to be the cul-de-sac. All of us are supposed to keep this going. It's kind of, sounds a bit pay it forward, doesn't it? Which,
But is that why when the Bible talks about a blessing for 1,000 generations, do you think it is just because it's naturally perpetuating?
I don't know if it's naturally so, as in,
sorry, that's wrong. Spiritually so.
No, but what I mean by, I don't think it happens. I think we can stop it. I can decide to stop caring about the hungry. I can decide to stop caring about the homeless, and then it's. But
does mercy birth mercy?
Yes. Oh, is that what you? Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Good. I'm glad you clarified. Yes.
There you go. Well, that's the end of our podcast, everybody.
Yeah. But you like that bit, don't you, about the fact that this passage starts with, you call out to me and wonder why I'm not listening.
Yeah.
But then God says, but if you do these things, then you'll call and I'm going to go, here I am.
Yeah.
So say some more about that.
No, I just love the imagery. I just love the imagery that this is a people who have been desperately trying to find God, and they've been eager and hungry to know His ways and looking for Him in all the wrong places, even though they think they're righteous places, and they think God should pop up at any point, and then He doesn't. But then they go serve the poor and the broken and the hurting, and it says Jesus suddenly God starts to hear their call and then sort of reveals Himself. I just think that's absolutely brilliant. That's, maybe you look through a lens that you want to see everything through, but it gives me great joy that God will appear, God will reveal Himself as we serve those who have really experienced brokenness and suffering and poverty and oppression. Man, oh my, you know what? I almost want to tell the church, maybe that's our job, Natalie, that we more than ever just need to be saying, you know what? You keep going to loads of prayer meetings. I don't know, you probably know my frustration with prayer movements that call out to God and rend the heavens, and God, you must act on our behalf. And they're all like, really fervent, and they shout at the Lord. Sorry to anyway. So it's a little bit of a bugbear. Really? But I'm like, I could tell you where He is. Let's go serve the poor. Because as we do so, He's going to go, hello, hello, my people. Let's go. I think that's just amazing.
I think that's amazing too. But I think part of
she said but.
Well, the but is, it can sound, or I certainly can imagine that
how do I sound?
No. I'm not. Well, almost like the minute I go and I start feeding people who are hungry, that God is going to go, right, here I am. Suddenly you're going to have this incredible experience of the presence of God and the power of God and the rending the heavens. Or when people are in prayer meetings like that, I'd imagine they're often praying for a revival to come to our land. And it's not like, if every single one in those prayer meetings goes and feeds someone who's, let's say, homeless and begging on the streets, God is not the next minute necessarily going to bring revival to our land. And so that's another thing, like we've talked about before, the patience and the fact that I think often the reason people don't do this is because it doesn't get quick results.
Totally.
So I absolutely agree with you about the presence of God, but again, we're in danger here of going, well, this is what I want, and is this a formula then that tells me how to get it, like you said? And actually, God will move when God will move. And of course, we should pray. And I know that you're not saying we shouldn't pray. And, we do pray, don't we, for God to move in our land. But also we've got to trust the sovereignty of God and trust the timing of God, but also trust that we are still to do the things God has told us plainly to do while we wait. And so it's not, I don't know, sometimes I feel like when I think I'm promised a quick result, I stop doing stuff when the quick result doesn't come. And so I think I just want to encourage us to keep going, because I imagine there'll be plenty of people who are listening to this.
What would be a quick result, though?
Well,
for you,
I guess, so say I share my food with someone, I would like them to come to know Jesus, have instant radical transformation in their life, to be, like a paragon of virtue immediately, go on a very straight and fast journey towards holiness and sanctification. I mean, this is what I want in my own life. It's like
for Christmas, I would really like.
But kind of, it's funny you mentioned Christmas, because God isn't Santa Claus, is He?
No,
it's not like, right, let me, Santa Claus is keeping. I nearly got Jesus and Santa confused there. Santa's keeping this list of who's naughty and nice, and if you've been nice, then you get the bike you asked for Christmas, or the pair of socks. I don't know what you asked for, but and God isn't like that. So we can't think, I've done the list, God. This year I've been really nice. So for Christmas, please, can I have the salvation I've been asking you for, the healing I've been asking you for? I think we just need to live with the tension that God does make these promises to us, but they often don't look how we want them to look. So even, I think of situations in my own life where I could easily turn around to God and say, God, I'm doing the stuff you've asked me to do, and you're not bringing me breakthrough in this particular situation. And there's a particular injustice I'm facing at the moment. For a couple of years, I've been facing it for 2 years. there is no light at the end of the tunnel in terms of getting justice. I recently have, I think, come to a place where I'm like, okay, maybe I can find peace, Lord, with just that I'm not going to get justice on this. But then I read passages like this and I think, but you've said you'll guide me. You've said you'll bring healing. You've said you'll satisfy. You've said I'll be like a well-watered garden. And I believe that God's response to me is probably, and I will keep my promises to you. But that particular situation you're looking at, that's not necessarily the outworking. Like, we're so prescriptive on what God should or shouldn't do, aren't we?
Yeah. Yeah. That's helpful. I wonder, though, if the promise is God.
Yeah.
Like, this is the people eager to find him. When they find him in the lives of the poor amongst the broken, it's him that says, here I am. Yeah. I wonder if that's enough for us, though. Whether we always want the more. Yeah. And there's a real temptation, isn't there, to be looking for the things that the world say are true life and prospering. Yeah. And what God would say is true prospering. So I feel like the number one promise here is you'll find God. Yeah. And is that enough for you? Now, yes, I think it's clearly written there that there's this promise of being satisfied, that you'll be a well-watered garden, that gloom will become noon and night will become light. Yeah. Come on.
Yes, I mean, yeah.
But is it first that you get God? And then that's going to be transformational in the way that we view everything. Yeah. All our circumstances. So I think about my friend Mo, who came to the UK as a Muslim, became a Christian, couldn't return to Iran, was persecuted on the streets of Britain, let alone Tehran, as his family sent people to beat him and remind him, but was packed off by the UK government and returned to Tehran, where he was arrested and beaten, in prison, then released, and then arrested, beaten and released, and arrested, beaten and released on repeat. Yeah. But when I speak to him and I say, wouldn't life be a bit easier? Wouldn't prosperity or fullness of life look like keeping your head down? Maybe you could settle down and just go to the mosque a bit and just pretend or pray to Jesus in the mosque. And he's just like, but I have Christ. Yeah. And it's everything to him. Yeah. When I say, do you ever feel like you need to just put it down for a bit? He's like, how on earth could I do that?
I'm glad he responds to you like that.
I know, he's
but it's incredible.
Far better Christian than me, but he's living in the sun-scorched land. He's living in the place of difficulty and pain, and yet he feels like he's prospering. Yeah. The problem is we don't often live in a sun-scorched land. We're not facing persecution and hardship. And we want prosperity to look a lot more like the world. I think there's a massive problem within the church where we have looked for prosperity in things that God never intended us to prosper in. Yeah.
No, I agree with you. But I also think in this passage, I wonder if that as we are in close proximity with people in poverty or those who are oppressed, I don't know about you, but for me, it makes me more desperate for God. Because I see so many situations I can't change. Yeah. Like, it doesn't matter how much, I can't throw enough food at a situation in some cases. I can't break the chains of someone's poverty. I can maybe loosen a little bit the bonds of poverty, but I can't always break the chains. And so what happens is I find God in proximity to those in poverty because I am desperate for God in those places. Because I have to say to him, Jesus, if you don't come through here, then there's no hope. I've got a teenage girl I meet up with at the moment through the Christian charity Safe Families. Every time I meet up with her, I come away and I'm like, Lord, if you don't intervene, there is no hope in her life. There is... humanly speaking, there's nothing I can do that's going to change her situation. Even being a stable adult in her life, I can't transform the trajectory her life is on. So I pray for her like I have rarely prayed for anyone because I feel so powerless. And it's my proximity to her that has made me
love it.
Pray and cry out for God. And I found this certainly in the last 3 years or so. So I've been a Christian 31 years, and in the last 3 years or so, this desperate desire for Jesus. And actually, it's funny because when we were talking, when you said something about the satisfaction, I was thinking, I'm not satisfied. Because what I find is the closer I get to Jesus, the more insatiable my appetite is for him. And so I've been basically saying to him, I want to both be satisfied by you and never satisfied by you. Because like there's something of, you do this stuff in Isaiah 58 and you need God. You're so up close and you're so seeing also the mess in your own heart and the mixed motives and all that junk and how you'd rather be comfortable. And I'm not that bothered about a Ferrari, but I'd like a car that doesn't break down sort of thing. Do you know what I mean? And I think, that's okay. That's the acceptable version of, But there's something of, I think we end up with God because we can't be without him if you're actually up close to people who are that vulnerable.
I think that's absolutely profound. I really love that. I almost, it makes some sense to me in that, we end up, compassion, they say, is shared suffering. It's almost like you begin to share the suffering of this girl that you've been given. It's a responsibility then to be crying out on her behalf and to know the powerlessness with which you talk about. Wow, I think that's an honor, but it's horrible. Yeah. But I'm thinking about Psalms 23, where we say, the Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want or shall not be in need, or whatever it is. And people often think it's because of the green pastures and the quiet waters. But verse 1 is, the Lord is my shepherd, I shan't be in want. Well, it's because I've got the shepherd with me. And will the shepherd be enough for us? Will the presence of God be enough for us? Is his presence satisfying? But hearing you talk, I find that really interesting. I'm both satisfied and then deeply unsatisfied. Is that the right word? Yeah. All at the same time, I want to unpick that a little bit more. Like how does that work?
Well, I don't know. Have you ever been through seasons in your Christian life where you're like, so for me at the minute, I'm in this season where my prayer life's the best it's ever been in terms of consistency and fervour. And like, I feel intense about Jesus, which is wonderful because I'm a really intense person and it's bothered me for years.
You're intense?
I know, who would guess?
Wow.
But it's bothered me for years that I can be really intense about people and things, and I've not felt that same intensity with Jesus. But for about 3 years now, I've had this deep intensity. Even when I think about, so, in a couple of days' time, I'm going to be preaching at a Jubilee Plus event, and I feel like fire shut up in my bones, that thing Jeremiah talks about. But what's happening is, like, even as I've been praying on my drive up here to record this podcast, I'm like in tears just with Jesus. I want to know you more. Jesus, I just want you. And I feel like I've got more of him than I've ever had experientially. But all that's doing is making me want him more. And so it is that weird dynamic where I'm so satisfied in him. Even things like, so it's 2 years ago that I gave up dating. And in that 2 years, I have felt so in the depth of my being that I know Christ is my beloved, that I know that Christ Jesus has made me his own. I'm his. It's just such a wonderful, and I could have told you that a few years ago that was true, but now I can't, I know it in my gut almost. It's a weird, and it's changed the dynamics of my relationship with Jesus. There's such a fresh intimacy and, like I said, intensity there. But the closer I'm getting, the more I want. And so I am deeply unsatisfied, actually, because I'm like, Jesus, I haven't got enough. I haven't got enough. It's like, I feel like a greedy kid, but in the best possible way. I feel like, I've just like drowned myself in a bath of chocolate, but now I where's the swimming pool of it? And that's kind of how my relationship with Jesus is at the moment. And
that feels healthy though. So it's like, these Isaiah 58 guys are unsatisfied because they haven't got enough of God, but they're not with him.
Yeah.
And so it's become unhealthy the way they're trying to get to him, or the reasons to get to him aren't for him.
Yeah.
They're really for their own blessing. But actually you're finding that being with Jesus just makes you want more of him. And that means you're going to approach fasting. You're going to approach justice ministry for him. Not for any other reason. Maybe that's the true motive, Lord, just more of you.
Yeah, well, because it loosens your grip on everything else.
Yeah.
So during this last couple of years, I've been praying more than ever, God, whatever money I've got in the bank, it's yours. Whatever I own, it's yours. Whatever reputation I've got, the things that I love to do, like speaking and writing, I'm like, Jesus, take them. If you want to take them, because if I have to let go of them to lay hold of you, then I want to lay hold of you. So I always, like I say, also pray, Jesus, I don't know if I really mean it, because, you know, the heart's deceitful and I feel like I mean it, but I won't know till he takes it all away, will I? And so if that happens, you can get me back on a podcast where we'll talk about, did you mean all those things you prayed? But definitely the reward here, like you've said several times, is God. You get God. You do the things of God and you lay hold of God. The best way to lay hold of God is to do good to people who don't have food, who are trapped by chains of injustice, because it's clearly in the Word, and not just in Isaiah, but the whole Word. It's through every section of Scripture that we're to do these things, because it reflects the heart of God to those around us, but also that is where we lay hold of God.
Come on. What a way to land us, Natalie. That was brilliant. Hope this has been a challenge and an encouragement to you. Where is God at work? Is he enough for you? Do you know the blessing of his presence? Have you experienced some of the fruit of this promise that we've been going into today? Maybe let us know. Maybe you've got a fresh perspective. Have we missed something as we've been going through this? Is our understanding of the promises that come when we obediently pursue God amongst the poor, is our understanding completely warped or wrong? Let us know. We'd love to hear from you. Put your comments in the little box below.
And let us know if we're right as well. How about some encouragement?
Yeah, she's never satisfied. Before she was like, tell them they can complain and send us to off what. And now she's like, please just tell us if we're doing it good. Yeah. Anyway, we'll see you soon. One more part left in our season. And thanks for joining us. See you again soon.